Hello there friends, it's Cassie. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we have a longer video because we're going to be doing the magic iris die. I could not wait to dive into this when this came, so we're going to set that off to the side for now, but we're going to go ahead and make all of our elements first. And this one we're going to be using the Gnome stamps and dies along with the mushroom border die. And so I'm going to, some stuff's going to be sped up and some things are not. So right now I'm going to show you just the pieces that I have. So this was cut out from the mushroom border die. And then I am going to take this strip of patterned paper. I'm going to run this through my Xyron sticker maker because this is the easiest way I've found to put the mushroom border die together. Is just run that through my sticker maker, and then I'm going to run that through my die cutting machine with the little caps of the mushrooms a couple different times. And then once that is all run through, we're going to poke out the little hole or the little excess pieces, and we'll peel off our sticker paper. And then we'll put those down on top of the mushrooms. But this was the easiest way I could find. I mean, you could do liquid glue, that would be fine too, but talk about easy peasy when you have the Xyron sticker maker. So I'll do that with all the little mushroom caps, and then they'll all be adhered, and we're going to just go ahead and get all the elements taken care of before we start actually messing with the magic iris. So here we have our background. This is just some Bristol smooth cardstock. I have cut this down to 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. And I am using one of my Vivos Beauty brushes along with some Tumble Glass Distress Oxide. And I'm running that from top to bottom, kind of ombreing it a little bit. I don't mess with the total bottom because that's going to get covered. I'm going to bring in some broken china and just kind of bring that down as well. And then we'll bring in a little bit more of that tumble glass and just even that out. We'll set that off to the side. This other piece I am going to just completely cover with the tumbled glass. This piece is going to be needed to cut out part of our magic iris, and I want this to match my background because this is the part that's going to be closed and opened. So I'm just taking that tumble glass and rubbing that all over my piece of cardstock. And then when I'm happy with that, we're going to do a little bit more to this background. I'm going to put this into my makeshift splatter box and take some Faded Jeans Distress Oxide spray, take off the cap and just splatter that. I did shake this like a bell pretty well to make sure that I had that shook up pretty good. And then we're just going to leave those off to the side to dry, and we'll move on to our coloring. I did stamp the mushroom tops from the stamp set onto the same paper that I had used my mushroom caps on before, and now I'm just coloring in those dots using a white gel pen. And then I'll set those off to the side, and then we'll move on to coloring our pieces. I went ahead and stamped these ahead of time so that you wouldn't be bored by that stamping since this is a little bit longer video. I stamped these onto some Express It cardstock using some Memento Tuxedo black ink, and now I'm going to color them in. Some of the colors are going to be kind of flat colors, so this one I'm only using the E13 for their skin tones. I thought that was good enough. These are smaller images, obviously. Fawn is known for their smaller, adorable images. And then for the hair, I'm going to color those all the same. We're going to start with some T1 as my lighter color, and then we're going to bring in some T3 to just darken that up just a little bit in some areas. I want these to look like some little older gnomes. Of course, you could color them any color you wanted, and then I'll bring in that T1 and color that again. But I am going to use the T1 and T3 on the bottom parts of the mushroom. I'm not going to color the top caps because those are going to be what I used that patterned paper for that I had stamped that earlier. All right, now for the little buckle, we're going to use some Y28. Keep that a flat color as well. Then we're going to come in with some T7 for the belt itself and their little boots, but we're not going to use any darker colors there either. Just bring in some T7 for the boots and stuff, and then her little belt around her waist or her dress as well. We're going to come in with some YR04 and YR18, and we're going to mix it up. So he's going to get an orange hat. He's going to have a little orange tunic. And then she's going to have, and he's going to get some orange pants, and she's going to have an orange dress. And then we're going to bring in the darker shade. So we'll go ahead and do a little bit of shading and shadowing on parts of it. Again, these are small images, so you could very easily just get away with just one color, but it's fun to add a little bit of depth by adding some shadowing and shading. And then once we are happy with that, we'll bring in some blue. Inadvertently, these have turned into, I guess, little Auburn gnomes. So if you are a fan of Auburn football or basketball or baseball, I guess I inadvertently made these to be little Auburn fans. No offense to the Alabama fans, but I guess this is where we're at. All right, so that was the B37. Then we're bringing in the B39. And then we are going to, just kind of shade that out with the B37. So I guess one might think I did that on purpose since we live here in Alabama, but I didn't. I'm actually a Nebraska fan. All right, so now we're going to do the matching dies and tack those down with a little bit of washi tape, and we'll run that through our die cutting machine. And then we'll set those off to the side. We'll fussy cut the tops of the caps out from the pattern paper, and I'm going to go ahead and adhere those using some liquid glue. And once again, I'll set those off to the side before we start assembling everything. And then we're going to take that same liquid glue and we'll adhere down our grassy hill to our mushroom border. Get that all ready to go because this is going to eventually have to go through my die cutting machine one more time, and I want to make sure everything is good and dry before we do that. So I'll adhere that down to the one piece, the background that I made, and I'm loving how that's looking. So that's good. We'll set that off to the side and we'll trim off the excess. But here we go. Let's slow it down and let's talk about the pieces. So we're going to need 3 pieces of the circle like donut type thing. We need 3 pieces of it looks like a balloon to me. And then we're going to take this piece that looks a bit like a hurricane on the Weather Channel. We're going to take that and run that through our die cutting machine over one of those donuts. And what that's going to do is it's going to cut out 3 notches, and it's also going to cut some little guides on that back side as well. All right. We also needed 3 tabs, and then we needed 1 little pull tab. So this is how those little balloon, I say balloon because they remind me of the pieces that one would use for balloon animals. So you're going to tuck those inside each of those cuts, just kind of lining them up. They're going to just get in there nice and snug, and they're going to just form along that whole donut. And then you'll set that down. The next thing that you're going to need is you're going to need some glue dots. You can't use liquid glue. I thought about that too, but you need it to be a little bit malleable, and liquid glue won't allow that. So at least with the glue dot, it's going to hold it in place, but it's still going to allow a little bit of movement, which is good. So you need 3 glue dots, because on each one of those little balloons that was cut out, you'll see a little, like an X. So it cut a little X in there, and X marks the spot. That is where we're going to put each one of those glue dots. So I'll peel off those papers. And it's funny, since this is in real time, you're going to see how slow I actually create. Because that's normally most of my videos are double time. All right, so we'll put that glue dot down on top of that X. We'll peel back our paper. And then we're going to do it for the other 2 as well. As I said before, if you watched the unboxing of this Lawn Fawn stuff, I couldn't resist this die. This to me was just easy. And I don't know if you've watched anybody else putting them together. I'm sure that you have, because this has been out for, a couple weeks now. But I loved this die so much. Typically, interactive dies don't speak to me, but I loved this one because I knew I could do it. All right, so now that all the glue dots are on there, we're going to take 1 more of our little donuts. We're going to make sure everything's lined up nicely. I know Jennifer McGuire used some purple tape to hold those little balloons in place. I don't have that. All I have is washi tape, and I didn't want to risk it tearing. So I am just kind of gingerly making sure that everything lines up, and then I'm sticking my donut on top. So now it's going to be that 1 donut on the bottom that had all the notches cut out of it. You're going to have your donuts in there, and then you're going to have your balloons in there and your donut on top. All right. Next, we're going to flip it over. And where you see those little notches that were cut out with our little hurricane piece, you're going to take some score tape or a nice heavy tape that will work, a strong adhesive. You could use liquid glue here, but I didn't want to have to wait for things to dry, so I grabbed my 1/4 inch score tape and I just took it from where the notch was cut all the way to the end of the donut. So from the outside to the inside, or the inside to the outside, however you want to say it. And then I'm going to take one of the tabs and line it right up with the inside of that donut. And it's going to stick out. And you're going to turn it. You're going to do the same thing with all 3. You'll peel off your release paper or use your glue or whatever, and then you're going to line up your tab with the inside of that piece. And then we'll do our final one the exact same way. Okay, now that we're going to have all 3 of those pieces on there, it's going to look a little bit like a Y with the circle, you know, in the center. And then you're going to flip it back over again so that those will be on the back. And you're going to want that bottom piece, or it doesn't matter which one, but one of them needs to be pointing towards you. I'm going to take some more score tape on our little tab. So this is going to be our pull tab. I'm going to put a couple pieces on the very bottom of it where the little curve is. And then I'll peel off that release paper, and I'm going to line that up on the bottom along the curve, and where I don't want it to overlap that lower tab, but it's going to line up right next to it so that you'll have almost like a V there. You know what I mean? You can see what I'm talking about. So I'll just put that down. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab some more score tape, and we're going to put it all along our tabs. So what is sticking out from those tabs, we're going to just put some score tape on those as well. Just a little bit on each one. It doesn't need to go all the way to the edge. It just needs to be enough to be able to hold those in place when the time comes. All right, now that we've done that, we'll peel off all of our release paper on those as well. And then we'll get ready to put down our last donut. But that really isn't the last donut because we will need to cut one more. All right, so now we'll take that last donut, we'll stick that on top of there, and then we're going to gingerly fold over our tabs. We don't want them to be real tight because you do need this to be able to move. So you're just going to fold it over. It's not going to go all the way to the inside there, and it's not even probably going to reach where the little stitched lines are either. It's just going to, you want it to just be nicely in there and not real tight. And then you can kind of play around with it and you'll see your mechanism is starting to work, which is awesome. All right, so I've got mine closed. I'm just going to take the little arrow out of my other piece, and then I'm going to attach this using some liquid glue. The reason I had this looking like my balloons and my background is because I want this to kind of meld into the background. I didn't want it to stick out too much. And you'll see why it'll all make sense there in the end, but it's going to sit on top kind of like that. So I'm kind of seeing where I want my iris to be, and this is where I'm going to cut out my very last donut. Now keep in mind, I am doing this over, in some cases, 3 layers of cardstock, so I had to run that through a few times, and it definitely left an indentation here, but I am having to just use my scissors to just kind of reinforce that cut just a little bit more. It was almost all the way through, but I did have to use my scissors for that. And that's what happens when you have 3 layers of cardstock. All right, so now we're going to take our piece and we are going to attach this down to a card base. This is just some white cardstock card base. It's a top folding A2 size card, but it's more of a horizontal, or not horizontal, landscape card, I guess is what you'd say. We'll adhere that down using that same liquid glue, and then we're going to flip that over and we're going to trim off all of our excess pieces. And then here is where we're going to kind of take a look at where our iris will be. I've got it closed now, and then I'll open it up and kind of see where the tab's going to end up, but that's where I want it. You'll notice on the back that sometimes those tabs can stick out. So I'm going to open up my iris, and then I'm going to go ahead and fold those tabs over so that they won't stick out the back when I open and close it. And then you just want to make sure and burnish those down pretty good, because this was watercolor paper, so, and I didn't do the best job of burnishing it down, but you will want to do that. All right, to adhere this down, you're going to want to use another strong liquid, or another strong adhesive. I'm using score tape, and only put it on the tabs. You need this to be able to move, so you only want to put that tape on where the tabs were. You could use foam tape as well, but that will obviously add more bulk, so keep that in mind. All right, so I've closed my iris again. I'm going to peel off my release paper from my score tape. And then I am going to put this down right into that center where that circle is, making sure that my tab is up, or my mechanism is up so that people know where it is, and it won't stick out from the card. It'll go into an A2 envelope just fine. So now, as you can see, that's how it's going to look while it's open. And then both of those pieces from my donut will be a part of this. So when you're attaching your top donut, you don't have to worry about the glue. You can put the glue all over the back. None of those mechanisms need to be able to move. So you can just, adhere that down to your little heart's content, not being concerned about movement with that mechanism. And then I'll take that same liquid glue and I'll put this in the center. Sometimes it's easier to put it down first, but I did find a little loophole here. So I'll stick that down, and then I'm actually going to take my paper piercer and I'm going to stick it through the back side underneath the magic iris, and then I can flatten it out better. And so then everything will close and open just the way it was intended and the way it's supposed to. But yeah, just using my paper piercer to kind of stick it in there and make sure that things get closed the way they're supposed to. And so everything works and moves just fine. So now we're going to speed it up again because it's just going to be adhering all the pieces. I'm going to have my little sitting gnome inside there so that when you open it, you'll see him. For my sentiment, I'm going to ink up a couple of the sentiments with some Versamark ink, and I'll stamp that down onto some black cardstock, and then I'm going to cover that with some Brutus Monroe embossing powder. This is the Alabaster embossing powder. I'll heat set that till those are smooth and melted. And then I am going to trim those down using my Tim Holtz guillotine trimmer. And then I'll think about where I'm going to adhere those. I end up sticking those to the top. So I'll just use my liquid glue to adhere these down. Just make sure that when you're gluing anything down, it doesn't get in the way of your mechanisms so that everything can move freely. And then we will attach down our little guy to the outside. And then we're going to open it up and we're going to stamp a sentiment on the inside. I think that's so cute. Thanks so much. And then we'll adhere all of the rest of our mushrooms that we had cut out. So we'll use that same liquid glue to adhere down our mushroom. And then our little gal, she's going to be standing next to the mushroom. And then the other two mushrooms will be just on that other side. And that's how easy it is. And this one's a more complicated one, honestly, with all the excess that I put on the outside. But take a look at it. You're a friend like Gnome Other, and it's fun because it's interactive and easy, and I love that it's easy. And it's so easy, in fact, I made 2 more cards. So let me go ahead and show you those other 2 cards that I made. This other one uses the Llama Tell You stamps and dies. So Llama Tell You, open it up and it says, "How much I like you." That's a super simple one. And then on the inside I used the Hugs die. And then this other one uses Meow You Doin stamps and dies. So Meow You Doin, and there's our little cat on the inside of our magic iris, wishing you a possum day. So there you have 3 super simple, easy cards that I had made, and I am not done making these. This will be like my go-to because this was so fun and easy. And like I said, everything's going to be linked down below in the description box if you're interested in checking any of the items out. If you liked this video, please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And I'd love to know what you think of this magic iris. Is this something you'd give a shot? Go ahead and leave that in the comment section down below. And as always, I will see you very soon in the next video. Thanks for stopping by, everybody.